Good morning, everybody. Just very briefly, North Door are a consultancy specialising in Microsoft technologies, and we have Microsoft Gold competencies in business intelligence and in data platform. And we are the chosen consultancy partner for Bytes for SQL and BI work. So that's why we're speaking to you today. What we're going to cover is I'll very briefly outline why people use BI and especially Microsoft BI. Then the important bit, my colleague Jason, one of our BI consultants, will give you a live demo of the Microsoft BI toolset. We'll summarise at the end what you've seen, and then I'll just briefly give you a couple of options for taking things further if you're interested in any of this technology. So the whole purpose of business intelligence essentially is for a business to use all the data at its disposal to make better informed decisions. That's not to say that the decisions will be better necessarily, but they'll certainly be better informed. The other thing that BI can give you is it gives you insight into new things you haven't thought of. And I guess the real difference between reporting and BI is that reporting, as I'm sure you all know, is a static activity, and it keeps, maybe on a scheduled basis producing the same set of reports. Whereas with BI, it's an active activity where you can drill into and explore new things and gain new insights. And that allows businesses to hopefully gain a competitive advantage. Now, ideally, you would have a data warehouse and you'd be using master data management to ensure that you might be feeding data from 6 or 7 different systems in your company into the data warehouse, and the master data management would ensure that the names and the way fields are set up for the same thing are done the same way across all of those so that it feeds into the warehouse sensibly. And also you'd be using data quality services to ensure that that data is clean. Now, SQL 2012 has all of those. We're not going to talk about those today. We're going to be demoing the BI tools for querying and getting insight into all that data. You don't have to use a data warehouse because you can use all these BI tools to look at the data from the actual systems and pull it all together as you wish. A couple of points to make about this slide. One is that different people within the business will want to do different things with the data. And the other thing is that a great thing about using Microsoft technologies for this is that it's pervasive through the business, and typically everyone's licensed for the commonly used things. And it means that all the users in the business can use these tools. So, and another key point is that in order to get these BI capabilities that Jason's about to show you, you need SQL Server, you need Office, and you need SharePoint. But lots of businesses already have all of these products in place. So if you already have all of them, you can use what you've already got, which is fantastic. The demo we're going to show you is based on SQL Server 2012, Office 2010, and SharePoint 2010. Now, there are newer versions of Office and SharePoint out, but the reason we've chosen these are the, there's a big installed base for these, so it's quite likely, you people on the WebEx have got these technologies. So without further ado, I shall hand over to Jason.
Thank you very much, John. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason LePage. I'm a consultant working for North Door. Just swap over to the demo environment. Here we go. Okay, so as John has said, today we're going to demonstrate Microsoft's BI toolkit. And I'm going to start that by bringing up a fictitious company intranet. So what I'd like you to do is put yourself in the shoes of a C-level executive working for a telecommunications company. And what we're looking at here is the intranet homepage for that telecommunications company. So one very good use of an intranet is to bring together key information about the organization in one place that can be consumed easily and understood easily. So the page we're looking at here is built using technologies available through Microsoft's BI toolkit, specifically performance point services. Performance point services allows you to build dashboards and scorecards and things like that. So this company called Contoso Communications has a number of key performance indicators that an executive would like to be aware of to understand how the business is doing at this particular point in time. And these scorecards can do just that. They show how the various regions of the business is performing at this time and any trends in the different metrics. Another way of representing key performance indicators is through the use of gauges. So two metrics that telecommunications companies are typically very keen on knowing are average revenue per user and average margin per user. So those are displayed clearly on the home page. If we move down the page, we can see there's some integration here with social media. So an executive can get a feel for what people are tweeting about this particular company, and whether there's something happening out there that the executive might want to be aware of. We've also got integration with reporting services. So we've got two key reports directly on the home page here. One showing a geospatially mapped report of new subscribers throughout the regions this business operates in, and another showing how many deactivations there have been. So I guess what we were thinking about is if you were to use a similar set of scorecards and KPI indicators and build the dashboards for your company, how could you use these particular tools to show the most relevant information. But in this example, in this fictitious company, we're a telecommunications company, and the scenario I'm going to run you through is a scenario of someone who's responsible for customer churn. So customer churn in a company such as this is where a customer gets to the end of their contract and they leave the company. And as you probably know from if you've ever tried to leave a mobile phone company and get a new contract, they're always quite keen to hang on to you. So this is something that this particular company cares a lot about. And this particular scorecard we're looking at is showing the customer churn trends across the different regions. And as you can see, in the eastern region, there's a downward trend in customer churn. So if I was responsible for customer churn in this company, this is something that I want to be made aware of immediately, and this scorecard is doing that for me. And what I'm going to do is actually drill down into this and try and discover why customers are leaving the company, and I'm going to use Microsoft's BI tools to do that. So the next dashboard I'm going to show you is a dashboard that's built specifically around this particular topic of customer churn. So there's a more fine-grained list of key performance metrics about customer churn here, so we can see we're losing revenue because of the customers are leaving, customer numbers are down. So these are all the metrics that I would typically care about if I'm the executive dealing with this. What I'm going to do is actually filter this this page to only show information about a particular category of business or line of business. So perhaps I'm responsible for wireless business for this company. And by putting that filter in place, the scorecard and the reports on this page are now showing information about wireless business only. So one key feature of BI is being able to drill into data to understand how the data that's being presented to you is made up. So one of the things I'm going to show you now is how you can do just that, and you can do it directly from this page without having to export any information to Excel or anything like that. So what we're looking at here is a graph showing the churn rate by line of business. So this is the line of business we care about. This is wireless business. And perhaps if we want to understand better about why people are leaving the business, you may wish to drill down into the data. So I'm going to do just that. Straight on the page, I'm going to drill down to the services that make up this wireless business. So the BI tools can now show me the different lines of business, or the categories of business behind this wireless business. I can keep drilling into the data. So I've drilled all the way down to the individual devices being used by people that have a wireless contract with this company. So you can see that it's starting to get a little bit confusing. So what I'll do is I can show you how to actually change the report type directly on this page. So perhaps this information will be better shown as a bar chart. I've done exactly that, and we can see in the latest set of data here, the customers that are most likely to leave this company are using discontinued phones or flip phones. So it sounds like customers using older phones are leaving the company. Perhaps the newer handsets the company is offering aren't good enough, and that's why they're not staying. So BI is all about gaining insights into the data, and I guess that's the first insight we've learned about this business. There's other formats you can use to display these reports. We can change this data to be viewed in a grid. And if you want to export this data to Excel, you can do that directly from this page. I'm not going to open up the spreadsheet, but that will then open up in Excel. You can also export the data to PowerPoint if you prefer. One other feature I'd like to show you is something called the decomposition tree, which is a different way of decomposing data. So again, I can open that up directly from this report. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decompose this data point, and what I'm actually decomposing here is different measures from within the data warehouse that's being used to present the data to you. So we can actually see the actual metrics of how many flip phones or discontinued phones make up the data point that I was displaying to you earlier. And again, this data can be displayed in different ways. You can change the format to a bar chart if you prefer, change it to a grid, you can export the data. And this would allow you to actually navigate through the entire data warehouse that's behind the scenes. So what these tools can do for you is it can allow someone who's not particularly technically savvy to answer questions about the data that's in the warehouse without having to go back to IT with a request for a new report or a request for a data extract. Because I mean, one of the key benefits of using these tools is to make users more self-sufficient. There's a couple of other reports at the bottom here, just showing you again some of the features that you can offer your users with this tool set. There's another example of geospatial mapping here, showing or making clear where the most churn is happening. So we know churn is happening in the eastern region, and you can see that clearly from this this map. And a bit more information in bar charts. You can see you can build reports in such a way that you can change the way the data is being displayed to users quite easily. So that's about all I'm going to show you relating to dashboards and things like that that are built inside SharePoint. So like I said, that technology that I showed you here today is in SharePoint using performance point services. The next thing I'm going to show you, and this is a tool that Microsoft has been making a lot of investment in, this is called PowerView. So PowerView is it's a completely new product from Microsoft that is built to allow users to do ad hoc reporting in a way that's dynamic and easy. So this report that we're looking at here is a PowerView report relating to sales and marketing. All the data elements on the report that you see are can be interacted with. So if I click on the different regions, you can see the report updates immediately. I can click on any of the elements up here, click on slider phones. I can see the revenue that's being made, or in this case, not using slider phones. as you can see, all this data is a bit depressing, isn't it? But I guess that's what BI is all about. You want to make sure that if something like this is happening in your business and you're losing revenue, why is it happening? So you can make a strategic change in the business to help improve the situation. So as you can see, PowerView reports are very easy to navigate, very easy to use, but what I really want to show you today is how easy it is to create a new report. So I'm going to edit this report directly from within the web browser. So if any of you people are technical, what this actually is, this is a PowerView report that's hosted inside SharePoint, and I'm going to actually make a new view in the PowerView report. So PowerView works in a very similar paradigm to a presentation. So these things are called views, but they're akin to slides inside PowerPoint. So I'm going to create a new view, and I'm going to call this sales by region and time. On the right here, I have data elements displayed to me that I can include on my report. So as this is a report about regions, I'm going to include the regions that the business operates in. And what you can see PowerView is doing is building a table of data for me. So I'm just going to expand that out. Next, I'm going to include information about subscriber invoices. So perhaps the number of units sold, margin, revenue. You can see there's a lot of different ways of displaying this data. For this particular view, a scatter chart is probably best. So here I can already see the sales by region displayed as a scatter chart. But what is really nice about PowerView is the ability to display data changes over time in a way that's quite compelling. So I'm going to include the date on this report. And PowerView understands what would be best to do with this date, so it's actually added a timeline onto the report for me. And if I push play on this timeline, I can see how sales in each region are changing over time. So you can see I built that report very quickly, but it's already showing me some pretty good information about the company. It's very easy to build these kind of things. Again, you could have a user that's familiar with building presentations, building views in PowerView, and again, not having to go back to IT for a request for a new report. And PowerView works very well with PowerPoint, so you can export these views to PowerPoint. You can keep the data integrity even after it's been exported, so it can still interact with the data that's behind the scenes. One other thing to say about PowerView is the data that you actually put in front of the user to allow them to create PowerView reports doesn't have to be the full and probably complicated full data warehouse. So what I'm looking at here is called a semantic model. So this is a model of the data that's it's simplified, if you like. It's easy for a business user to understand. Any quirks of the underlying systems that this data might be coming from aren't visible through the semantic model. And this data again can be hosted inside analysis services in SQL Server. So although it's not perhaps a traditional data warehouse, it's still hosted inside SQL Server, more held in memory, and is very performant. The next tool I'm going to show you is called the pivot tool. So the pivot tool is a really nice way to visualize data, probably in a way that you wouldn't typically do. So this being a telecommunications company, what I'm going to do is show you how to visualize all the handsets that they actually sell to their users. So you can see these are images of the handsets themselves. These are all the data elements that I could use to filter this data. So perhaps if I want to see which handsets are being sold in each region, I can click on the region filter and the view would change. If I would like to see perhaps the handset that's generating the most revenue for the business, if I click on revenue, I can change the slider filter here. And again, the data will be filtered to show me the relevant handsets. Now this data is coming from a data warehouse behind the scenes. So if I click on a handset, I can actually get the underlying elements from the warehouse. So it's a really fun way of visualizing your data. So if you're in the music industry, this could be pictures of albums or artists. So again, you could try and think about how you could best use this kind of tool in your business area. But very nice way of visualizing data. And finally, I'm going to show you Power Pivot. So what I've brought up here is called a Power Pivot Gallery. And what Power Pivot is it's an add-in for Microsoft Excel. It's actually technology that was acquired by Microsoft called Xvelocity. And what it allows you to do is to have very large volume of data inside Excel that you can work with. And when I say large volumes, I mean millions of records. The data is compressed and is held in memory, so you can work with the data. You could model the data in Power Pivot. And this tool is all about giving power to the user, and Power Pivot is probably the ultimate expression of that. This would be a tool that someone who is familiar with Excel and familiar with building pivot tables in Excel would be, they'd be able to get up and running very quickly. So this is again the SharePoint intranet showing a Power Pivot gallery of Excel workbooks. And as you can see, these different workbooks have different worksheets. So I can actually get a preview of the underlying worksheets in each workbook from within this gallery. If I click on a Power Pivot workbook, it will open up the Excel worksheet inside the web browser. I can actually click through each of the worksheets. And bear in mind, I haven't actually opened up Excel yet. So if any of you have used Office 365, this is using the same Excel web application that Office 365 uses. I can still interact with the workbook in the same way that I could do in Excel. So if I want to filter the data, I can do that. It's probably worth saying that I haven't had to download anything. So if you use Excel a lot in your organization, you'll know that quite often you have the problem of many different people using very similar versions of the same worksheet, and there's the problem of having multiple versions of the truth. If there's different versions of worksheets being used by different people and they're stored in different places, you never quite know which one is the correct version, which one holds the correct version of the data. And this kind of technology allows you to get around that problem because the workbooks are published centrally, they're version controlled in SharePoint, and yet they're still as easily accessible. If I want to, I can still open up the worksheet, or the workbook rather, in Excel. So I click on the Open in Excel button, I can open it for edit. So if I was the user that had built this workbook, I can interact with it the same way any other user might from the Power Pivot gallery, but then perhaps I might want to actually make changes to it and use it the way I'm used to using it, if it was perhaps on a network drive. And I still have the option of opening it in Excel. I can make whatever changes I would like to make to the Excel workbook. And when I save it, it will save directly back to SharePoint. Not particularly fast today, as you can see. Apologies for that. There does seem to be some kind of performance problem here. No, there we go. So we've now got the Excel workbook opened up in Excel. I can now work with the workbook in exactly the same way that I usually would. And when I save any changes, they'll be saved directly to the SharePoint list, and they will be made available to all the other users of the internet immediately. And that pretty much completes my demo. So I'm just going to take you back to the slides again. I'll go through a quick summary of what we've seen. So what I showed you first was an executive scorecard and what you can do with a scorecard hosted on a dashboard. to provide these key metrics that executives may want to be aware of, and shows key performance indicators and targets for the company and trends. Management dashboards, how you can provide users the ability to drill down into scorecards and into charts, and answer questions about the data without necessarily having to go back to IT with requests for reports, new reports, and really, understand why trends are happening, and at the end of the day, make better decisions. I've showed the decomposition tree, allowing you to drill into your data. So if your organization already has a data warehouse, this is a nice way of giving users the ability to browse and around the data warehouse and decompose the data. PowerView, so this is the new key strategic tool that Microsoft have released. It's highly interactive. It allows you to explore your data, build very rapid reports and views. You can publish these PowerView reports in SharePoint and allow you to access them through the browser. It is probably worth saying that Microsoft have really developed a lot of new features into PowerView, and in Office 2013 you can now build PowerView reports directly inside Excel. Pivot tool, so this is a really fun way of visualizing the data that you might have in your warehouse. Filter the data and see the results visually, and perhaps gain insights into the data that you wouldn't get in a more traditional view of your data. And finally, Power Pivot. So Power Pivot gives the ability to load large volumes of data, combine data from multiple sources, process data very quickly using Power Pivots rather, in-memory features, and then share the work that you've done in Power Pivot through SharePoint and through the use of the Power Pivot gallery. Thanks very much, everyone. I'm going to hand you back over to John.
Thank you, thank you, Jason. So, if any of you, if there were things in there that you're interested in pursuing further, there are two ways we can do that. One is, obviously, we'd like to speak to you. So, as Sarah said, in the feedback form at the end, you can request a callback on a particular topic. The second way is that we run a series of BI experience workshops, which, again, if you'd like to attend one of those, let us know. So I'll just quickly tell you what those are. It's a half-day workshop run at our offices here in London, and it's led by one of our BI consultants. So it might be Jason, for example, might be one of his colleagues. It's quite a small workshop, so it's going to be limited to 6 participants. And the main point is it's an actual hands-on workshop. So we have 6 workstations, and we have all the technology that Jason's just shown you with all the data. And it's a scenario-based thing. So you actually are asked to find answers to certain questions, and you use the tools and the data to actually find the answers to these business questions. So it gives you a real hands-on use of the technology. So the next one of those is actually a week on Friday, and then the one after that is on the 21st of March. So that concludes our session. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. So I'm now just going to open it up to questions. So if you do have any questions that you would like to submit now, please do pop them in the questions box. If I just give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then we can go through any of those that you may have, and hopefully either Jason or John will be able to answer those for you. So we've had one come through from Anthony, who says, could we use Office 2007, or would we have to upgrade to 2010 to use Power Pivot?
Hi there, I'll answer that one for you. So Power Pivot is an add-in to Excel. You would have to upgrade to at least Office 2010 to use it. So you can use Office 2010 or Office 2013, but unfortunately not 2007.
Okay, lovely, thank you. And another question here says, how is SQL data, can you please explain how SQL data is set up, how SharePoint is made aware of this, and how dashboards are configured, and how PowerView, etc. know about the data columns?
That's a lot of questions. Okay, let me try and tackle the question about data first. So the data that I showed you today that was presented in PowerView was actually held inside a SQL Server tabular model. So that was data held within SQL Server in a warehouse effectively. So there are other sources of data you can use with PowerView. So you could get the data from a Power Pivot model. And if you're using later versions of Office, there is a very nice new tool that works with Office 2013 called Power Query, which is not something I demonstrated to you today, but it's a very, very nice way of allowing users to actually search for data sources. So using Power Query, you can search for a data source by its description, and Power Query will go away and find those data sources and list them to you. So you might get data sources that are public coming up, or data sources that are published within your organization. Hopefully that answers your question about sources of data.
Okay, lovely, thank you. I've got another one here from Bobby who asks, are existing BI deployments, i.e. in SSRS running on SQL 2008, still fully operable in SQL 2012, or would migration be needed for existing SSRS implementations? We are considering moving from SQL 2008 to 2012, so this is a consideration for us.
Yeah, okay. The good news is reporting services is still a very strategic tool for Microsoft. So the new tools I showed you work alongside reporting services. They don't replace it. So reporting services in 2012 works in a very similar way that it works in 2008. So the reports that you have built in 2008 or 2008 R2, you can absolutely run in reporting services 2012. And I know from experience that the migration is a lot more, a lot less painful than perhaps going from 2005 to 2008, which could be a bit of a headache. So yes, you can move those reports across very, very, very easily. There has been has been quite a major change in the way that SharePoint integration works with reporting services. So there's a new SharePoint application that is used to integrate reporting services into SharePoint. So the reporting services actually runs within SharePoint itself as a SharePoint service, which brings a whole bunch of new features to the table, and it simplifies the implementation to some extent. But that does mean if you're using reporting services integration with SharePoint in SQL Server 2008, there's a technical change you need to be aware of there. So when you move to 2012, you would have to change the way that SharePoint integrated mode works.
Okay, lovely. And I've got another one here from John who says, we're currently using SharePoint 2013 cloud version. Are all of the tools compatible?
That's a really great question. So I think you're probably one of the lucky ones, because there's a lot of other really nice BI features that are only available in Office 365. So there's currently something called the Power BI for Office 365 Preview, which is a fantastic set of new tools that are in preview and will be released, to all users that are using Office 365 in Q1 this year. So you've got the Power Query feature I mentioned earlier. There is something called Q&A, which is a really cool way of being able to use natural language queries against data that you've got published inside your intranet. There's also some new geospatial mapping features that are very nice. But to address your question about compatibility, so a lot of the BI tools that I've shown you today are actually add-ins for Excel. So if you're using Power Pivot, you would use that in Excel in the same way, whether you are using Office 365 or you're using an on-premise install. I guess where the major difference is between a cloud version of these tools and a local one is that if you're using a data warehouse for your data, and if you've got that in the cloud, there might be certainly be some differences there in the way that you interact with that data. But if you're using PowerPivot, the way that you build PowerPivot models and publish those is very similar. And I guess there's probably one other thing worth saying. There is actually a Power BI portal that is, again, only available inside Office 365. So that's another benefit you would actually get of using Office 365 that on-premise users just don't have right now. So, yeah, thanks for that question. That's a good question.
Okay, lovely. And is PowerView a standalone product, or does it come as part of a suite?
Okay, so PowerView it's an interesting question because it is actually a few different things. So the PowerView that I demonstrated today is part of the SharePoint toolset, if you like. So it's something that is hosted within SharePoint Enterprise, and you need SharePoint Enterprise to use it in the way that I demonstrated today. PowerView inside Office 2013 is actually part of Excel. So it's quite strategically different. So it probably depends on which version of Office you're using. If you're using the versions of Office that I demonstrated today, which is Office 2010 and SharePoint 2010, then PowerView is part of the SharePoint Enterprise Suite, and part of the it obviously works very closely with SQL Server 2012, and it's part of the SQL Server 2012 BI edition.
Okay, lovely. And I've got a question here from Ted who says, are there any restrictions on what data warehouse, MDM, and data quality systems could be used, e.g. Informatica or Teradata?
Well, I guess the good news is there's no restrictions whatsoever, because if you wanted to use the front-end tools that I demonstrated today, the source of the data could be literally anything that supports an OpenPC connection. So you could be using a non-Microsoft MDM solution. You could be using a non-Microsoft data source. And as long as you build a PowerPivot model that pulls that data together, you can then use PowerView to build views on top of that data. If you wanted to use PowerView hosted within SharePoint in the way I demonstrated today, you would need to have that data inside a SQL Server tabular model database.
Okay, and a question here from Les. Our current BI system has the ability to nest dimensions within dimensions like products sold within customers by time. Can your software do this?
Well, that's really a question about data warehousing. So it certainly can, but that would be something that you would need to build into the data warehouse that feeds data into these tools. So that data warehousing is quite a specialized skill, and if you build a data warehouse in the right way, you'll be able to nest your dimensions in such a fashion and build those dimension hierarchies and relationships and things like that. If you were using PowerPivot, I think you'd struggle to do those kind of things. You would really need to have a data warehouse behind the scenes, driving or providing this data to your users.
Okay, and one from Colin here that says, I believe you cannot have reporting services installed if you have SQL set up on a 2-node cluster. Will this cause problems?
I'm not aware of any particular problems. I don't know if that question has anything to do with the way that SharePoint integration works with reporting services, because that would be slightly different and wouldn't affect how clustering works. But I mean, that might be something I probably don't have enough information about the exact environment to really answer that properly. So I mean, I guess we could take that question away if you like and come back to you.
Okay, yeah, we can take that. We can take that offline. So another question that's come through here from Paul. Sorry, can you just mute your... Lovely, thank you. So we've got another one from Paul. Can you recommend a training book developing dashboards, etc. in SharePoint 2010 using software as a service? We have several cubes available but are only using Excel and SSRS only.
Not at the top of my head, I'm afraid. I guess we can come back to good information about that. I must admit, I'm a very big fan of MSDN and Technics, and I usually, when I'm developing these kinds of things, I usually rely on those mainly. So there isn't one that springs to mind, unfortunately.
Okay, no problem. We can come back to you on that one as well. Another one, for churn analysis, are you designing a data mining model or just creating a scorecard? I'd like to know how you trained the data.
I must admit that data warehouse is a sample provided by Microsoft, so the actual underlying data I'm not too familiar with. What I do know is there is some predictive analysis in there and some forecasting in there that I didn't actually demonstrate. But as to exactly how those churn metrics are generated, I'm afraid I couldn't actually answer that with any degree of accuracy.
Okay, and we've got another one here from Ted who says, how do these MS tools compare to the competition, e.g. SAS? What is the main differentiator?
I think one of the key differentiators is how serious Microsoft is in investing in these tools. So they've acquired technologies like Xvelocity. They now have several ways of providing in-memory data to users, which is something the competition does. I guess the main differentiator, though, by using the Microsoft toolset, is the fact that a lot of these tools are already deployed and already licensed. And this is something that no other competitor can say. So I guess it's one of the reasons why Microsoft is making Excel such a strategic cog in the BI toolset. So a lot of the new BI features they were producing are add-ins to Excel, so that they can, also that Microsoft can really utilize the fact that Excel is so pervasive throughout many organizations. So as a key differentiator, I'd say that's probably it.
Okay, lovely. And we've had another question. Is PowerView available in SharePoint Foundation?
No, unfortunately not. You would have to use SharePoint Enterprise to host PowerView. As I was saying, you can, in Office 2013, you can actually build PowerView sheets inside Excel. So if you have SharePoint Foundation, it doesn't mean you can't use PowerView, it just means you can't host PowerView documents inside SharePoint.
Okay, lovely. Thank you for that. So that's all of the questions that we've had through today. So obviously if there are any other questions that do come through, please do fill them in on the critique form, which will come up at the end when the webinar ends. And if you are interested in attending the workshop, please also let us know within that critique form. Thank you very much for joining us today.